Hello everyone, this is Chess Teacher Tui. This is game 2 of Bobby Fischer's My 60 Memorable Games. I just got done making a series of videos that covers this game in depth, but this first video is just the summary, where I go through all of the games without getting into depth on Fischer's variations. If you want to see a very deep analysis of this game, I have a series of videos that will be available along with this one that will go over all of Fischer's annotations and variations. But this first video is just a summary of the game itself. So this is Fischer-Larsen 1958, which was played in Potorosh. It was the interzonal tournament to determine who could play in the candidates tournament in 1959. Fischer begins with e4, Fischer's favorite first move. Larsen plays c5, Sicilian defense. Knight f3, d6, modern variation, d4, standard exchange of pawns in the center, knight f6, knight c3, g6, the dragon variation. Bishop e3, Yugoslav attack, bishop g7, preparing to cancel, f3, preventing knight g4, castles kingside, queen d2, white is preparing potentially for this battery diagonal, knight c6, bishop c4. The old main line was castling queenside, but Fischer plays bishop c4 to prevent d5. Larsen plays knight takes d4, bishop takes d4, bishop e6, bishop b3, queen a5. Larsen is preparing a typical dragon attack. Rooks are going to be going to the c-file. Usually the way the Yugoslav attack works is white castles queenside, black castles kingside, and then there is an attack for white along the h-file, an attack for black along the c-file. Castle kingside, b5, king to b1, b4, dislodging the c3 knight, knight to d5, bishop takes knight, which is better, bishop takes d5. Fischer remarks that he takes d5, and with this following variation is an improvement that Tall makes 2 years later. But bishop takes d5, and rook a to c8. Fischer calls this the losing move, and this is one of the game's critical positions, because by not taking the bishop while he is able to, Larsen does make a mistake which will greatly aid in Fischer's game the rest of the way. Larsen plays this move because he thinks that taking the bishop will lead to a drawing line, which I'll show in the other videos. But by not taking the bishop now, Fischer says he will not get another chance. Fischer plays bishop to b3. And this bishop ends up being one of the most critical pieces in the game. It's very famous because, as you can see, black is trying to attack along the c-file. He's already gotten rid of the knight. Normally there's sometimes a rook for knight c3 sack in this position. But look at how perfectly placed the king's bishop is on bishop b3. He's guarding a2, he's guarding c2, while also keeping this f7 pawn pinned, aimed directly at black's king. That bishop is just so valuable in this position. And Fischer says it's from this position that he thought the game was in the bag as long as he didn't screw it up. As from Skittles games, all you have to do now, pry open the h-file, sack, sack, mate, which is one of the most famous coded annotations in all of chess. So Larsen plays rook to c7, Fischer plays h5, starting the kingside attack, queen to b5, h5. Fischer remarks he does not need to spend time with g4. He doesn't want to waste the tempo, and in this game, a single tempo, that saving that time, Larsen never gets his attack started. Rook f to c8. You see the theme of counterattacking on the c-file. h takes g6, h takes g6, and g4. Fischer keeps going with the kingside attack. a5, and now at this point Larsen needs only one more move to get his own attack going. If he can just get in a4, but unfortunately for Larsen, he will never get the chance. g5, knight to h5. Rook takes h5. What a beautiful sack. Fischer quotes Reuben Fine, in such positions, combinations are as natural as a baby's smile. Fischer writes, no better is to refuse the sacrifice. Fischer says that after knight h5, that bishop takes d4, queen takes d4, g takes h5, g6, queen e5 is no better, and white still has a winning game. However, it's in this position that Fischer actually misses the refutation. There is actually refutation here. Garry Kasparov points it out. After rook takes h5, black can play bishop takes d4, queen takes d4, pawn takes rook, g6, and then instead of playing queen to g5, the move is, scroll down, let me find the variation. After g6, the move is rook to c4. That cuts off the diagonal and it gives back the exchange, and that's the position where it's actually possible for Larsen to hold. So, of course, who knows how many years later the computer in Kasparov finds that refutation. But let's go back. Larsen accepts the sacrifice. Pawn takes rook, g6, e5, he takes 7 check. Either he's got to take it with the rook or move the king. Moves the king. Bishop e3, repositioning the bishop for a more useful diagonal, either perhaps g5 or h6. And also now this d6 pawn is now also being targeted. d5, Fischer gives this move an exclamation point and says this move nearly saves the game for black, a desperate attempt to break through, and points out that going a4, trying to start the attack, does not work. a4, queen takes d6 check, and then rook e7. And in this position, I invite you to pause the video and find the absolute beautiful continuation. Okay, if you've had a chance to pause the video and look, the continuation, queen d8 check, rook takes d8, rook takes check, rook to e8, bishop c5 check, queen takes, and then pawn takes rook, checkmate. So beautiful. So d5, Fischer takes with pawn. You can't take with bishop, obviously, because that leaves the c2 pawn undefended, and now black has a deadly counterattack. So d5, e takes d5, rook takes pawn, d6, rook f6, bishop g5, queen b7, bishop takes rook, bishop takes bishop, d7, rook d8, and queen b6 check. Here white now has mate in 7, and Larsen resigns. But there's actually a faster mate. Fischer writes that this is a mistake. So I invite you now to pause the video if you can find Fischer's mate in 3. Okay, Fischer's mate in 3 is actually queen h6 check. And if you see it, there's just nowhere for the king to possibly go. I mean, there's only so many legal squares. These 2 squares are cut off by the bishop. Can't go here because of the pawn. So he has only 2 choices. He can either interpose with the bishop and then checkmate, or the king can choose to go here and then queen e7. Can't go here, can't go here, can't go here. So either he interposes again and gets mated, or he goes to f8. and gets mated. So, an absolutely beautiful display of attacking by Fischer. It really can be that simple sometimes. Pry open the H file, sack, sack, mate. This is one of the most instructional positions on how to attack a fiend shadowed king with a pawn storm accompanied by pieces. And Fischer again exemplifies how big of a tactical mistake it was not to get rid of this b3 bishop, which totally anchors both White's defense and his attack at the same time. Wonderful game by Fischer. And if you want to get deep into Fischer's notes and annotations, feel free to watch the rest of the video. I go about an hour, spend about an hour going over this game and Fischer's annotations, and you are welcome to see those as well. They are posted on this game as well. But I want to wish you good luck with your chess, and as Mato would say, goodbye for now.